Thanks for your patience, everyone. It is my pleasure right now to introduce Dr. Timothy Slaper. He's from Indiana University in the United States, and he's going to be talking about today's challenges and opportunities in measuring entrepreneurship, or E-ship. Welcome.
Thank you. Usually I stand in front and jump around a lot, so I'm not perhaps used to this particular format. All right, what do we, this is the outline. Why does entrepreneurship matter? Why does E-ship matter? Well, Schumpeter talked in terms of economies and the process of creative destruction. We don't have a lot of buggy whip manufacturers anymore. We don't have a lot of Coopers, people that make barrels anymore. But we do have a lot of people, I guess, working in cybersecurity. So that's creating jobs while other industries are potentially losing jobs, right? So entrepreneurship matters because of innovation. It tends to bring out commercialized technologies and processes that wouldn't be available to the market otherwise. It helps in terms of income mobility and, like I said, the employment uptake from that destruction process. Now, the rate of business formation has been on the decline for, since the 1970s. You can see two graphs there. And there's a lot of hand-wringing about it because, oh my goodness, our rate of entrepreneurship just did not recover after the last recession very much. So this is a problem for folks. So we start off with the definition. What exactly is entrepreneurship anyway? Like who is and who isn't an entrepreneur? And if you listen to any national public radio, sooner or later you're going to hear something about a support from the Kauffmann Foundation, the Foundation of Entrepreneurship. And they have two categories of entrepreneurship from their perspective. It's called opportunity-based. That is, if you see a need in the market or you see that you have this really cool technology that you think the market would like, that's something you pursue and you spend 16 hours a day trying to make that happen. Need-based would be something where I need a job. I need to put food on the table and I just got laid off down at the plant. So you know what? I know how to roof and I got some buddies on the production line. Why don't we all come together and start a roofing company or a landscape company? That's need-based. That's because, I'm good at something, I need to make money, so I'll go on that. Now, which do you think Kauffman Foundation's more interested in? They like the opportunity-based, right? Because they are interested in business formation and growth of companies. In a sense, they're interested in gazelles, right? Companies that grow very, very quickly and create jobs and economic dynamism. So in a sense, the Kauffman Foundation is going on a gazelle hunt. I don't know how many people are familiar with this book, Going on a Bear Hunt. The interesting thing is they actually find the bear and the bear chases them back to the house. So I guess that's what is happening with Amazon in terms of they were a gazelle and now they're basically, taking over the entire business landscape. So what are we trying to capture in terms of our data and definitions? Business formations. We're also interested in signals that are showing some sort of activity. We're also interested in who's a future entrepreneur? Is it a gig worker, somebody that's got a side hustle driving Uber or a side hustle as a wedding photographer? Is it somebody that works for one of these top talent outfits where if you're a coder and you can work on the beach in Australia and work for General Motors or some small outfit doing coding? Doesn't matter where you're located. Is that an entrepreneur? So this is something of a problem in terms of this notion of these are the type of people we're interested in, but we really don't know. And what are the signals we're after? What are the variables we're after? What's the data we're after? And by the way, does theory inform any of this? So in terms of measuring entrepreneurship, we have challenges in terms of aligning what we're trying to measure in the data collection. And then the opportunities, though, abound because of essentially big data and new sources of data. So what contributes to entrepreneurship? monitoring perhaps activity in real time because the official statistics are a little bit dated and old, and the prospects of the future. So here's a list of what entrepreneurs maybe are or maybe not. And oh, by the way, I had like twice as many slides, and I actually pruned this down to, it might not feel like it, but I actually did prune this down considerably. All right, so we're going to look at entrepreneurship in the rearview mirror, some of the official statistics, what contributes to entrepreneurship, eShip forecast or nowcasting, and then what it might look like in the future. So what does Kauffmann Foundation use when it comes to measuring entrepreneurs? These are all new business owners, all right? They can be any sort of business, whether you're an employer or a non-employer, whether you're incorporated, unincorporated. If it's a new business start, they're interested in that. And they have a little map in their reports about states in terms of the relative rate of new entrepreneurs. And Alaska, that's the AKA over the side there, is kind of high. And I visited Anchorage a while back, and I was at this bar that I was told I should go to, and started a conversation with one of the locals, and he says, "Oh yeah, I've been bankrupt 7 times." Because if you ain't been bankrupt, you aren't trying. You know, it's just a matter of, hey, that's what you do there, you know, and whether it's gold prospectors or whatever else, they're starting businesses. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but it doesn't matter. If you're not going bankrupt at some point, you're not trying. I like that. All right, so the opportunity share of new entrepreneurs, this is something that's this information's collected on surveys. They call people up and say, are you not employed? Are you not looking for a job? But are you trying to do some entrepreneurial kind of stuff on the side? If you answer yes, then you would be a new entrepreneur that's working on the opportunity side of the equation. That is, you're not employed, but you're trying to start something new. What else does Kauffmann use? They use another source of data for early job creation, because we're interested in jobs, as well as the early survival rate, that is, those that persist for a year or more. So these are the current data sources, but often they're like 3 years old. You know, mayors of cities want to know about how vibrant their city is now, right? Or maybe a month ago. They don't, you know, they're not so concerned about, well, this is what happened 3 years ago. It's like, well, you know, I need news today about what's going on in my particular geographic area. One of the other problems related to a lot of official statistics is small geographic boundaries like counties, for example, are often not available. You'll notice in that Kauffmann Foundation thing, it was by state, right? We couldn't focus on Orange County where we are here now in Florida. So, what constitutes entrepreneurship? You know, and here are some things. Entrepreneurship is a function of, you know, seeing a supply need or a gap in the market, access to capital. You might argue that perhaps entrepreneurs are also have a passion for something, maybe an obsession for something, but they're always able to leverage people, financial resources, ideas into something that the market will accept. So what sort of things contribute to entrepreneurship? Some of these things we can measure fairly well, whether it's innovation, whether it's technical know-how. We can know in terms of academic achievement, the sort of, you know, sciences, engineering. But there's also other elements of kind of the invisible thing to official statistics, like personality traits. So we've done some work in our shop and collaboration with others about personality traits that go into correlate region to region in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of business starts. And these are these 5, it seems like everything's 5, 5, elements of the moral domain, 5 personality traits. We have 5 fingers. Anyway, so these are the 5 personality traits there on the right. And we then get geospatial analysis of this, and it looks like the people down south there are pretty agreeable. right? So they're fairly agreeable. It also turns out a lot of people up there in Minnesota, Minnesota nice, are also fairly agreeable. Here's openness. This is a slight shift, right? It looks like people in the South are agreeable, but they're not maybe open to new ideas, new change, that sort of thing. So we've done some initial work in terms of, basically looking at all the counties in the country and seeing that agreeableness is not positively correlated with entrepreneurship. Conscientiousness is not positively associated with business formation. However, extroversion, if you like meeting people and talking and stuff, if you're somewhat neurotic, that's also high on the entrepreneurship side. Openness, not so much. Then we're also looking at art and design. How does that affect entrepreneurship? And there's some different theories about this, like, you have all these entrepreneurs that do interesting things, and as a result, eventually they start funding, artistic programs and theater and ballet and art museums and all the rest of it. So art is really the cherry on top of economic dynamism. Some say, like Richard Florida, arts are an indicator that there's a creative class, that there are people out there, engineers, artists, mathematicians as well, all kind of coming together and coming up with great ideas and then commercializing that. So arts are an indicator of other things that are going on in the heart of that economic region. And then there's arts as a secret sauce. Arts, some people would say, is what actually creates individuals who are creative, innovative. They think about new ways of putting new ideas together. And one of my collaborators on this, Timothy Wojan, would say, look at all the Nobel Prize laureates. Most of these folks, they're artists. I mean, they're musicians. I mean, they're almost like concert class musicians. They are very artistic as well. If you go to the, that's another story for another time. Okay, so what we're trying to do is say, okay, if we can say, let's say artistic lives matter, all right? So how can we measure the artisticness of a region? Well, we have some data on web behavior based upon people's interests. So what we do is we say, well, if you're a musician, you might be interested in, say, Martin guitars, so you're going to go on a Martin guitar website. Or if you are interested in painting, you might go to an art supply website. And then based upon that, you start doing correlations with other places, other websites you have visited, and we come up with people's relative behavior in the arts and design. And this is what it kind of looks like by zip code. These are the super hot spots in the country by zip code. Zip codes out west tend to be larger than those in the east because of population density. But my collaborator Tim Wojan, he's looking at this and goes, "Wow, that's really pinpointed that artistic community in Minnesota and Iowa and in Vermont and all the rest of it." It's like, whoa, Tim, that's kind of cool. So what he did was he took, we've got performing arts organizations by county, and now we've got this concentration of web behavior by zip code, and he did an analysis using both and found that it was actually, these two things actually work out pretty well in terms of our Logit models. Okay, other nowcasting features. Work I've done with another outfit in terms of crafting audiences. This is related to entrepreneurship. So if the question is, I want to analyze an audience, analyze a constituency of people who are interested in starting a business, they're looking for entrepreneurial resources, right? They're going to go to Inc.com, Wired, Fast Company, businessplans.com, that sort of thing. And then they're going to also go to other sources. So then we create basically an eShip audience, that is, or constituency by zip code. And this sort of makes sense. If you look at this, it's really, really dark around Silicon Valley. It's really dark around LA and San Diego. Also in terms of Boulder, Colorado. Seattle is also very, very dark. Portland as well, all along the I-95 corridor, Boston. So we're seeing that there is indeed some correlation then between entrepreneurship and this web behavior, so that we can over time then sort of nowcast this activity as it might relate to future business. And this is this higher scoring counties over time, San Francisco, King County, that's Seattle. I'm from Indiana, so I had to throw in Hamilton County as an example. Travis County is where Austin is. And these are all the higher scoring counties. What's interesting, for me anyway, is Teton, that in Wyoming, Sun Valley in Idaho. I guess people that are on vacation, that are entrepreneurs, that let the wife and kids go off and ski. I'm going to go, trying to figure out some additional resources for my my venture. We also are looking at nowcasting using Twitter sentiment. And so this is a lot of natural language processing, pulling from, the fire, not the garden hose, the fire hose, and trying to discern changes in attitude and how that might predict the willingness to take on risky behavior. So this is what Houston looks like. How long do I have until the time? Oh, I'm past that based on this. Okay. All right. So this is what Houston's sentiment looked like. Harvey came in, everything went to smash, right? It's flooded, all the rest of it. The people that were able to do, send Twitter comments, the whole thing crashed. But it bounced back pretty quickly to pretty much back to the U.S. baseline. Same thing in terms of Florida in Hurricane Irma. It's bouncing around pretty close to the U.S. Level. Irma hits, and, things are not looking too well. There's no electricity, the clean water, my house is flooded, the roof fell off and all the rest of it. But the sentiment rebounded. Guess what Maria in Puerto Rico looks like? You think the same thing? No, not at all. So this is kind of an indication that this may be an evidence of maladaptation to a shock, a natural disaster. So we're looking at that as a way of saying, is this going to necessarily promote entrepreneurship? We're looking at Google Trends. Our shop is. Yelp was looked at by a professor at the Kennedy School, looking at Yelp reviews, and when they started pop on, oh, okay, 3 months ago we didn't have this Thai restaurant, now we do, so that must mean there's a new Thai restaurant in town, and then you start collecting kind of data on that. Now, most of these things tend to be, consumer-oriented. You're not talking about, engine manifold manufacturing, right? Because not many consumers are going to talk about that on Yelp, but it does say something about the economic dynamism of a region. There's also Getty Images, credit card transactions, internet activity and presence to identify new businesses. In other words, what we are doing here is we're using the Wayback Machine, Internet Archives, looking when those websites first appeared, and then seeing if they developed over time in the archives as an indication that that business is prospering. Because we also see indications where somebody, some professor starts an LLC, I'm going to, start an LLC and make money on the side, right? They start an LLC, but the website never develops. That's kind of an indication that there's not a lot going on with that particular entity. So we're going to look at that and see the degree to which the appearance of new websites and their development and expansion over time may be also indications of business formation and activity. Okay, in terms of signals for future, we're looking for networking data as an insight into what might come in the future. So Meetup has an entrepreneurship kind of subcategory. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you're looking for resources, people to bounce ideas off of, you're going to go to Meetup, you're going to meet up at some point, and presumably that kind of network of contacts will eventually result in the new businesses. So we're also looking at web behavior in terms of nowcasting, and there may be some interaction effect between that webcasting and personality. That is, in some places where the personalities are not as conducive to entrepreneurship, then maybe that web behavior, if there's more web behavior in that area, you need more web behavior in that area to kind of make up for the deficiency, if you will, in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit in that place. So that's pretty much it. And okay, again, didn't we already do that? Oh, I hit the wrong button. Okay, so again, there are multiple challenges. Those tend to be related to measures and sources and data. The opportunities, though, what creates entrepreneurship, the signals we can find using different sources of big data, and we also have potential signals for future activity. So that pretty much sums things up, and I probably went over time, but okay.